Everyone, my name is Nikki and this is Art with Heart, and today we are going to be teaching you how to do some finger painting. Now, I know that there is a common misconception that finger painting is for toddlers. Because, it's textile, sensory based, and, they mix it all up and it feels good. But hey, guess what? You do not have to be a toddler to enjoy this medium. You can be any age, a young kid, an older kid, or an adult even. You just need to learn a few things to make it, I like to call it elevated finger painting, textile finger painting. All right, so let's get started. So first of all, if you are someone who has the box that goes with it, it might look something like this. You have your canvas in there. We did include a glove. Now, do I recommend the glove? No, I do not. But I do recognize that some people really don't like getting their hands dirty. My son is one of those people. Really does not like getting his hands dirty. So if you would like, you can use a glove. The only thing about the glove is it gives you a little less control, I find, just because it gets bunchy and all that. So really, you have the glove, you can use the glove, but feel free to ditch the glove if need be. All right. You also have a practice sheet here so that, and if you are not following this along with a box, please get a piece of paper and follow this tutorial with just by practicing on a piece of paper. It'll do wonders for and it'll prepare you for the canvas, okay? I also have some paper towel in here for you. Feel free to get more paper towel. More is always better in this circumstance. And we also, what is not included in your box is some water. You're definitely gonna want a little bit of water. Just helps spread things out and all that jazz. I don't use a ton of water with finger painting, but it is helpful to have on hand. So we're gonna open up all our little cups. Today we're using a rainbow assortment right here. We have a magenta, an orange, a yellow, a turquoise, a blue, and some white. White being the paint that we want the most of, because we can do a lot of mixing and such with that. So we're gonna open up our lids and get everything ready. For finger painting, we really wanna have everything ready and out so that our hands are touching very few things other than the paint, because as you know, as you can assume, your hands will get painty today. So a few things we want to go through before we begin today. I always start off a class with these just few happy tips for happy creating. So one, everyone paints differently because they are different, and it is okay if yours does not quite turn out like mine, does not quite turn out like the person you're doing it with. That is normal, that is good. There are so many different artists out in the world, and they all have their own unique styles, just like you will have your own unique style. You paint differently because you are different, and that should be celebrated. Okay? Deal? So that's one. Two, enjoy the process. I know it's gonna be a little weird with the paint on your fingers and all that, but enjoy it. When do you get to finger paint, really? It's awesome. So just feel the process, enjoy the process. Try to keep your negative self-talk to a minimum because it just impedes your creativity and makes it not so fun. And this is about fun, all right? Cool. And it is so much less about the final product as it is about just doing it. It feels great to make art, so let it feel great. Cool? All right. So we are going to get started. Now you probably are working on a flat surface, which is a lot easier than on an easel, but I'm gonna work on an easel just so it's a little easier for you to see what I'm doing. So with finger painting, I like to use each finger for a different color. You're gonna see this as I go. I'm going to use each finger for a different color so that they don't mix. Because it's not like a paintbrush that you can swish around in the water and then switch to another color. So I'm going to use some yellow. I'm gonna take my middle finger. I mean, it doesn't really matter which finger you use, but I'm gonna take my middle finger. And today we're gonna do some sunset type horizons. So I'm just kind of sloshing my yellow in the middle here, because that's where about where my horizon line is going to be. So I'm not, as you can see, I'm not just putting it all in a square in the middle or anything like that. I'm kind of pushing it off to the side, and it's not like a definite shape here because we don't want anything to be too boxy. So I have a little bit of my yellow. Any guesses as to why I'm starting with yellow? Well, it's the lightest color and it's easiest to put on first, because if we put it on last, everything will get murky. Murky, murky, murky. I'm adding a little bit more kind of underneath. Now, just so you know, there's going to be a lot of layering today. So just because I just dropped my yellow paint on the floor, it was good. Do you see? Yep, there it is. So that's okay. I'm keeping it. Mistakes happen. That's art. All right. I'm going to put a little bit more up in here. Okay. Now, you also don't have to spread it out so that there's no goops, like goopies and like kind of textured areas are totally fine in finger painting. So I'm just kind of doing a little bit there. All right, so kind of put on a little bit of a bright spot in the middle. Now I'm going to move on to my orange. So you can use another finger, but when I'm done with my yellow, sometimes I just use my orange because they mix all right together. Now I'm really going to be very intentional about where I put my colors from here on out. Very intentional. And what that means is I'm going to kind of think about the sky and how I want it to look. So I'm sort of putting that orange in on the edges of the yellow in some spots. I can also take a little bit of white and kind of flow it in there too, and you get like a nice corally color happening. I haven't been switching fingers yet. Usually, personally, I like to do the warm colors on like one finger, and then I move to another finger for the cool colors, because those definitely don't mix. But, you know, it's all preference. If you prefer not to mix your colors on your fingers, that's totally okay too. But you definitely are going to be moving them on the page. And it doesn't have to be a rush. Just kind of very intentional with where you're going to put your colors and really blending them on the edges. Do you see how I take the color and then I really blend it onto the edge of the yellow? So you get kind of like a mixture happening, get a flow going on. I'm sort of also going to be concentrating my orange on the edges of the yellow here. I might even pick up a little bit more yellow and flow it on top just to get like a cool, brighter color. But it's all experimenting, it's all playing. Today is all about play. See how I just used like, so remember, with a finger rather than a paintbrush, you have full control over the movement of the piece, right? Your fingers control the directions. So be intentional with the way you're moving your fingers. I like to, for horizons like this, I like to bend the sky a bit. I like it to kind of look kind of bended like this. And that kind of gives it a perception of a horizon in the distance. Add a little bit more white. Sometimes I put on too much white, but then I just really mix it in. You can see that. See how I just move my finger back and forth until it's blended the way I want it to be blended? Kind of cool, huh? So far I've only got 3 fingers, but I can also wipe them on my paper towel whenever I'm ready. So I'm gonna add just a bit more orange down in here. And then I'm gonna start slotting in that beautiful magenta color. I'm a big fan of this color. It mixes beautifully with turquoise to make a really nice purple. So it's absolutely one of my favorites. So as you can see, I'm just gonna start slotting it in very intentionally. So I'm using a sideways sort of movement, but I do want to draw your attention to something you can do in case you want to change it up. But you can use also circles. I'm going to kind of do it underneath and then I'm going to go over it because I'm sort of using something else, a different technique right now. But if you wanted to, circles work perfectly well as well. Actually, you can make some really cool clouds using circles just like that. So let's say I wanted to make these into clouds. So I'm layering on some white and I'm using some circular motions. So that is something you can do if you're feeling like maybe a different style. This color mixes into a really beautiful pink. Feels very tropical to me, which I really like. Everybody is thinking about tropical right now. Sorry. So I'm sort of balancing that pink, making sure I get some on this other side as well. You don't at all have to go as fast as I do. So timing wise, you can absolutely take your time. The only time you're going too slow is when the paint starts to dry on your finger and on the page as you're going, and you can't mix it as well. But if that happens, just grab a little bit of white, I find, or a little bit of water, and it kind of extends its blending life. Finger painting is, for me, such a wonderful tool as an artist. I know there are a few artists out there who do finger paint, and I'm definitely one of them. I love it. I think that it kind of gives you it's very calming. And there's a little bit of a freedom to it that I really enjoy. So I'm gonna throw a little bit up there, but I'm gonna leave it alone because I'm gonna be mixing it with the blue and the turquoise there. And then I'm gonna put a little bit over here. So as you can see, it's really being intentional and with coverage, right? You want to be aware of the areas you're trying to cover. Really kind of getting in this corner here. Pretty good. I'm now going to switch to, you know what, I'm going to put a little bit more magenta down in here just to work with later. So right now I'm creating a sort of sunset over a lake. And this is how I'm doing it. I'm adding a little bit of this magenta to mix later. As you can see, just like that. I'm now going to switch to my turquoise. Now, it's up to you, but this is a good time if you'd like to sort of wipe the hands off. As long as they're dry, like you can still see the paint there, but as long as they're dry, it's okay. You can keep going. Lost my paper towel, come back. Okay, so now, turquoise. You're gonna love this. So the turquoise mixes so beautifully with the magenta. It makes such a beautiful purple, and I'm such a fan. So as you can see, I'm really just like pushing hard on with my finger to sort of get it to mix. As you can see. Now, but is there a such thing as mixing too much? Totally. You could totally go over this for too long and you'd end up with, like, you wouldn't have all these separate beautiful colors showing through. You'd end up with, well, what happens with a toddler when you give them multiple colors and they just for too long. So you do want to be very intentional and careful about how long you're spending, how much time you're spending on each area. I'm going to use a little bit of white to soften this. You also want to be very aware of the colors that are mixing as you mix them. So for instance, I know I have turquoise on my hand right now, so I'm going to want to be very careful as I go into any yellow, because then you're going to have some mixing. And as long as you want, like if I wanted that mixing, I would allow it, but I'm trying to not have that. You can also just really not mix. You can really just like put the color on and leave it, and it ends up looking cloudy and kind of ethereal. See how I kind of just created that cool looking cloud? Just like that. So if you wanted, that's one way we can kind of get some really nice cloudy tones in there. Just kind of leaving the paint on there a little bit. Not mixing it in too much. I'm liking this so far. It's really fun. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of turquoise down here now. And as I said, just like mixing where you want to mix and avoiding where you don't. I'd love to see some turquoise down in here. So and into the magenta, so I'm allowing them to mix. And being very careful around the yellow, because then you'd end up with some very bright green tones in your water, which if you want, great, go for it. But I'm kind of avoiding that right now. Definitely our word for today's lesson is intentional. We want to approach this in a very intentional way. Maybe I should call it intentional finger painting. I don't know. Get back to me on that. You can also, like I just did, when you're getting down to the nitty-gritty, I like to sometimes use a little bit more of my fingers just to get a flatter surface. You can do that, don't have to, just something you can do. I once was in an art battle and I started finger painting just because I found my brush wasn't going fast enough, because it's 20 minutes to put together a piece, right? So my brush wasn't going as fast as I wanted it to, so I just picked up my paint with my fingers and I got to work. Okay, so I've got a little bit of that going on. I'm gonna go back and really highlight, add the highlights of the water and such, but for now I'm all right with this. I am going to, I wanna be more distinct with my horizon line. So I'm going to very subtly make sure I have my horizon line mapped out. And now when we want like thinner lines, we can use our pinky. Our pinky is available to us for that. And that can sometimes give you a little bit less of a thick line. Now remember, you don't have enough control to be super, super detailed here, and that's okay. It's a certain style we're going for here. So I'm gonna switch to my blue now. And I'm really gonna just flow that blue into what I have left. But once again, very intentionally, mixing colors as I wish, as I go. I'm also starting to be aware of my edges. It's always good to paint your edges, or you can, you know, take a color and paint them at the end with a paintbrush, but edges are always good to think about. So I'm concentrating my blue on the edges. Why? Well, because I want that light from the sky to sort of take over the horizon, and it to only really get darker as it gets closer to the viewer. That's just a personal choice I'm making here. But your art is your art, so feel free to do whatever makes you happy. Your horizon line also doesn't have to be flat. Maybe you decided you want hills. These are things you can definitely do just by moving your hands in a certain way. Okay. I'm getting messy. This is why I wear an apron, because then I can just go like this. Okay. So, I think I'm gonna flow in the tiniest bit of blue in the sky. Just the tiniest bit. Very, very carefully. I really like the way that mixed with the pink. This is why I think I love finger painting. You can just really like discover how the colors mix in a more intimate way, I think. Okay. So I'm being very, very careful with how I'm adding my blue here. But yeah, sort of giving it a little bit of some darker tones in a few spots, which are nice. I'm also going to flow it into this corner to make this horizon line a tad more obvious. There we go. I'm enjoying the movement of this piece so far. It's definitely something you are thinking about as you go. You just really want to think about your movement. Where does the viewer's eyes go as they are looking at your piece? So you might be finding your fingers are getting gunky. That's what the water is for. You can definitely stick your fingers in the water and then take the paper towel and get a little bit of that off, just to in case it's bothering you. I know that sometimes that's a sensory thing that can be really irritating. Personally, I kind of like picking the paint off. I don't mind that at all, but it's definitely personal preference. So now that I've kind of filled in my whole background and the whole kind of like scene, I'm really going to be just filling in some white and kind of blending where I want to blend to finish it off. So we started with some clouds in the sky. I might add a few more, and then I'll probably add a little bit in the water to make it look nice and flat. So remember, how much paint you pick up on your finger is very, you have to be very calculated in that. You don't want to pick up a whole bunch, because then you'll end up with, you know, a lot of that. You really just want to go little bits at a time. So here I go with my white. I'm going to concentrate it really on the center area as I go. I'm just going to be super aware of where I'm putting it, because we don't want to go too crazy with it. We just kind of want to flow it in a few spots. And I kind of go over it until I'm happy with the result. It takes a little bit of time to get the right look, but once you do, you'll know it. So far, they're a little thick, and that's okay. I can layer on top. This is the thing about acrylics that I enjoy, is that you can keep layering until you're happy with the result. You can also use the white at this point to cover up any spots you're not a big fan of. So I'm going to flow in a couple more, and then I'm going to very intentionally add some colors on the edges of these white streaks so that they're not as thick. Also going to do that trick where I pull across. There we go. Okay. Now I'm just going to add, I feel I've lost a bit of yellow here, so I'm going to just add some very, very careful yellow. I'm not overly blending because at this point we're getting a little bit wet on here. So if I try to over blend, I'll end up with some brown, which is fine if you want brown, but I do not. Take a moment here to notice what it feels like to finger paint. Do you feel a little bit like a kid again? Does it give you anxiety because you're like, oh, I don't have all the control here? I know that can sometimes be the case. But whatever you're feeling, it's totally okay. But now's a good time to notice it. Just adding a little bit of color wherever I kind of feel like we need a little bit more color. Really taking my time. Being aware of how when I put something down, I really want to like make sure it fades off. So sometimes I have to move my finger a certain way. I think I'm happy with that actually. So only you can really decide when you're done. I can't tell you that. I know to much to some people's chagrin, but you are the artist here, and only you can know. I added a few longer, more obvious waves here, just so that I could get, just to kind of give the indication of water. So I'm just adding a little bit there to kind of make it look like that. Sometimes I forget how much I love finger painting. Jeez, so nice. Maybe a little bit of orange here. Okay, and I think I need a few more clouds up in the sky, and we're good to go. I'm really happy with this. This turned out really fun. So remember when you might have some leftover paint on your fingers. I'm allowing that to be a thing because clouds look way more interesting when you have a little bit of color to them, just a little bit. So I'm gonna add that, maybe a little bit down here. Remember, you want your clouds that are farther away to be smaller. So I'm adding some smaller clouds, smaller and less detailed, less defined, down here. And then I'll make some bigger ones as I go over there, up top. Okay, think this is just about done. Thank you so much for tuning in with me and checking out my finger painting process. It really is just, if you let yourself not judge it harshly, it really is just like a very nice thing to sit and create. Kind of just gotta let yourself enjoy it. All right, I think I'm gonna add a longer one right here. Yeah. Changing up my style a little bit just to add those fluffy clouds. And maybe another bigger cloud over here. I think we are done. Oh, one more spot. See, that's an artist for you. I'm just like, I'm never done. Okay, there we go. Well, geez, that was lovely. I super enjoyed that. Okay, here we are. I'll give you a nice look. So see how you can see lots of spots where there's goops and such. Remember, nobody looks at your piece this close up, right? When you're looking at a piece of art, it's on the wall usually, and you're looking about this far away. So please don't like overanalyze and look like super close and be like, oh, I don't like it. Don't worry about that. Nobody's gonna be looking at it like this. They're gonna be looking at it like that. And look how much better that looks from far away. So feel free to sort of like put it down, have whoever you're painting with sort of hold it and look at it from far away. And then you can kind of see how it's turning out. Or, you know, if you're getting frustrated, take a step away, let it dry a little bit and keep going. That's the beauty of this. Once this dries, you can continue to layer on top until you're happy with it. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in with me today. I had so much fun finger painting with you. So have a wonderful day, and feel free to share these with Art with Heart when you're finished. Thanks so much. This is Nikki at Art with Heart Studio in Simcoe. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.